Rio was a kid often looked down upon, ugly, disgusting, and useless. But who would have thought that Rio would actually receive divine protection from God, sacrificing his life to manifest a blazing aura? That aura was like a flame that burned the Demon King to ashes, consuming everything until nothing remained. He wasn't just an ordinary kid, but rather the embodiment of the legendary guardian who was the only one to succeed in driving away the Demon King's entire army 1,000 years ago. With his sacred spear, he managed to destroy them all, even though the Demon King found it amusing, like a worthless monkey. Unfortunately, the Demon King stabbed him from behind, causing chaos and discord to persist across the 6 realms. However, even though Buddhism was destroyed, Shu Tian's spirit scattered into 72 parts across the cosmos. Natural disasters continued to shake the human world, never ceasing. At one point, when Jin saw their house starting to collapse, he quickly told his brother to close the door and stop talking nonsense. As the roof of their house was about to cave in, Jin knew they had to act quickly, or their lives would be over. At almost the same moment, their father barely escaped a pillar that nearly fell on his legs. They had to face a demon who arrived with extraordinary power. With fierce determination, they fought with all their might, though many of them suffered severe injuries. Asmodeus, the demon, shattered the ground beneath him, even slamming Omni until he was crushed by a collapsing pillar. Yet Jin swore to protect his father. When Asmodeus jumped to end their lives, Omni, though injured, was still able to protect them all. With his remaining strength, Omni threw them upward, blocking Asmodeus's attack, and used the chain on his staff to hold the demon back from sacrificing them all. Even though Asmodeus damaged his weapon, Omni didn't give up so easily. With one clever move, Omni managed to bring the demon down, and used the heavenly chain to turn the surrounding pillars into giant fists that crushed Asmodeus. The demon was pushed back but remained dangerous. Jin, almost losing hope, began to realize that they had to escape. Finally, they escaped to a safer area, passing through a dense forest. After 2 hours of exploring a mysterious cave, they arrived at an ancient relic belonging to the gods. There, Omni began to unseal it, signaling to release the vines that covered 2 legendary swords. As soon as Jin and Omni lifted the swords, a golden aura illuminated the surroundings, and remnants of the god of war began to rise into the air. Omni revealed that the swords would awaken the god dormant within Rio. Rio's destiny, hidden all this time, was the key to saving the world. Like a fate that had long been written, their journey had only just begun. As the cave began to collapse, they immediately felt the danger approaching. Without a second thought, they ran away, trying to avoid the falling debris that came closer and closer. Meanwhile, the secrets within the cave began to reveal themselves as the hidden aura of charm finally activated. They ran as fast as they could, crossing a bridge that connected them to the dark, dangerous center of the volcano. But Omni, always alert, sensed something strange as the cave ceiling started to fall and as Asmodeus slammed his face into the ground. However, despite the worsening situation, Omni remained calm. Quickly, Omni used magic to distract the demon just enough to free himself from the grip that nearly crushed his head. In the midst of the chaos, Omni prayed to the heavens for enough strength to survive. Not long after, around Asmodeus, magical energy began to emit a powerful aura, as if trapping the demon, and threw him into the blazing lava below. Through the dust and smoke, Jin felt relief seeing his father still alive, but his happiness soon turned to horror. A hand suddenly pierced through Omni's chest, and a beautiful girl, with a cold smile, revealed that she had been waiting for this day for 1,000 years. In his final moments, Omni struggled to remain strong. He begged Jin to protect Rio, the brother he had always considered useless, and then used a forbidden teleportation spell to send them both across the stars. But just as the demon princess was about to kill Jin, their souls ascended, soaring toward the sky, while Omni could only hope that his children would survive in a realm half-human, half-demon. 13 years had passed since that incident, and on Rio's 14th birthday, Jin began his Demon Slayer graduation ritual. With high hopes, Jin released his mana, surrounding Rio with the power of the gods until the binding seal finally broke and the mana began to be absorbed. As the gods started to acknowledge Rio's strength, Jin proceeded to reveal the relic left by their father. However, Rio could only wonder what that object truly was. At that moment, a scream for help shattered the silence. Gandalf, an old man, frantically begged the kids for assistance, promising to pay them with his life savings if they could save his daughter from a threatening cat demon. But Jin, ever cautious, sensed something strange. He responded sharply, stating that he'd rather attend Gandalf's daughter's funeral than fall into a trap. However, when Gandalf's bag fell and a golden bell rolled out, Jin was shocked. It was a bell strikingly similar to the kind usually used by demon girls. With a serious expression, Jin immediately demanded that Gandalf reveal where he found it. Gandalf finally shared a story about an abandoned house in a village shrouded in thick fog, a place where anyone who entered disappeared without a trace. But as Jin turned to discuss further, he noticed something suspicious. His brother, who had been nearby, had suddenly vanished. Just then, a fox girl almost beheaded Jin before her attack missed, and she vanished into the mist. Feeling cornered, Jin began to spin, creating a tornado that cleared the fog around them. Seeing this, the fox girl pleaded for Jin to spare her life, promising to do whatever he asked. but Jin only felt disgust looking at her form. As Jin turned away, the fox girl leaped to end his life. However, Jin activated his reverse blade and struck her. But before everything ended, the fox girl revealed that her brother intended to kill Jin. At the same time, Ryo was struggling to fend off attacks from the cat demon. As the demon attacked with swift movements, Ryo managed to dodge and close the distance. Ryo threw the demon far and used his staff to break its arm. However, the demon vanished, moving faster than Ryo could see, destroying his staff in the process. Just as Jin intended to save his brother, Ryo's staff emitted a golden light. When Ryo grabbed it, he threw the sacred staff at the demon, and the beam of light signaled to the 6 spectral realms that the war god, after 1,000 years, had been reborn. The cat demon realized Ryo had launched the staff before losing consciousness and attempted to flee. However, Jin appeared just in time, threatening to end its life and questioning it about the golden bell he had seen. When Jin rang the bell again, the effect forced the demon to confess. The demon revealed that the bell foretold the war god's rebirth, and to extract the shard of his soul, Jin would have to kill the demon's slayer. Suddenly, the orb flew on its own, lodging deep in Jin's throat. Trying to protect his unconscious brother, Jin ran, but a golden light exploded around them. At the same time, the fairies realized their time had come and teleported to the human realm. At sunrise, Jin congratulated Ryo for becoming a demon slayer, awakening his special weapon. But as Ryo went to claim it, the sacred staff shrank back to its original size. The fairies requested they hand it over, but even though Jin was suffering from internal bleeding after the explosion, he still drew his sword, ready to strike them down. The girl dropped her weapon and threatened to burn Jin if he moved. However, a second fairy appeared between them, saying they were on Jin's side. As the fairy cast a healing spell on Jin's arm, he introduced himself as Sorrow and revealed they had been sent to retrieve the war god's iron. On the other side was Xiaoba, the foolish pig, who kept babbling non-stop. Despite being a bit shocked by Xiaoba's stupidity, both of her brothers were still glad because, if anything, Xiaoba was pretty charming, one might say. Sorrow, who was eager to continue his explanation, finally unveiled the mystery that had cloaked their past. Long ago, in the Age of Gods, Shu was killed by the god of races, Sorrow said with a serious tone. However, even in death, his soul did not simply vanish. Instead, Shu split his soul into 72 fragments scattered around the world, hoping that one day he could rise again and become the Buddha, saving the gods. But of course, there was a huge problem to face. Sorrow continued, the Demon King, who is never satisfied, will target us. The Demon King wants to revive Shu again, but not for any noble purpose. He intends to make Shu his servant, as Shu was the one who once destroyed the world. Ryo, who was listening to all this, began to realize that what Sorrow said might be true. Ryo nodded slowly, deciding to hand over his precious magic staff, feeling as though it was the right thing to do. Ryo apologized to Jin, as it seemed he had lost the precious gift from their father. But Xiaoba, with her ever skeptical and stubborn nature, immediately snapped at them. What's this? You gave me a fake staff. A confused Ryo looked back at his magic staff, and at that moment the golden aura surrounded it again, as if providing its own answer to the doubts that arose. Sorrow, who seemed to understand where the conversation was headed, explained that the Shenzhen iron they carried would only awaken under someone with a pure heart. Jin, who never cared about such things, quickly dismissed the idea, thinking that his personality was no different from his hard, flat chest. So why should I care? He muttered, glancing at the staff that was now glowing even brighter. With no other choice, Jin finally commanded Ryo to come along if he valued his life. In his heart, Ryo began to wonder if all of this had been planned by their father from the start. But maybe this would be fun, he thought. A journey with these two eccentric fairies is bound to be interesting. They prepared to leave home forever. Ryo activated the compass within his magic staff, and as expected, it pointed toward a distant valley. Sorrow, who seemed to have been waiting for this moment, called up to them, the hovercraft carrier is ready. Let's start this adventure. Several hours passed, and they finally stopped to eat. The table was filled with food, and they all began devouring the meat eagerly. Xiaoba, always curious, suddenly asked, Hey, are you all secretly African kids or something? How come you keep eating so much? Jin, now full, just shrugged and replied, We eat only because we're afraid that if we don't, we might end up as flat as you. Xiaoba, feeling insulted, reacted immediately. It's not about being flat. Any stick can rise if it's the right size. Outside, in the quiet and desolate desert, a beautiful girl fell hard onto the ground. Fortunately, the autopilot on their hovercraft almost ran into her but stopped just in time, avoiding danger. Jin, curious, quickly ran toward the girl and found her. He lifted her into his arms and quickly realized that she was badly injured. Why don't you want to go home? Asked Jin, looking at the wounds on the girl's body. But Xiaoba, who seemed more concerned with her own affairs, immediately forbade Jin from bringing the girl into the hovercraft. Don't bring strangers along, she snapped. However, Jin just smirked. Are you jealous because this girl isn't as thin as a cutting board like you? He teased, though he felt something strange about the situation. The beautiful girl, now beginning to regain consciousness, slowly opened her eyes. Jin, who had initially planned to massage her aching body, was instead stopped by Sorrow. Who is this girl? Why was she stabbed with a knife? Asked Sorrow, curious about her story. The girl finally introduced herself. "I'm Jing," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "I was stabbed by a group of bandits before I managed to escape. I'm scared. I have to go back to that dark cave." Her voice trailed off, and tears began to flow from her eyes. Jin could only sigh, feeling that their adventure had only just begun. However, Jin vowed to protect Jing, as they also planned to gather fragments from the same cave. When she saw his magic staff, Jing felt happy, remembering the sacrifices made for that celestial weapon. Jing knew that behind all of this, the cameraman had also risked his life to capture an extraordinary shot. Night fell, and as Jin was having strange dreams, Jing tried to throw her net toward Rio. But as soon as the door opened, she quickly hid her rope, feeling panicked. Outside, Saro, feeling the warmth of his body after his bath, sensed something off about Jing, making him suspicious. Pretending he was in the wrong room, Saro wondered if he'd accidentally walked into an insane asylum. Morning arrived, and Jin prepared to show off his powerful moves to Jing. However, he couldn't find her anywhere. Growing worried, Jin thought bandits might have kidnapped her again, so he swore to rescue Jing. Meanwhile, Rio was furious after discovering that Jing had stolen his small staff. Xiaoba, too, was losing her mind as Jing finally arrived at the cave. Seeing her sister for the first time since the abduction, Jing was shocked at how they had tied up her little sister. Jing handed the staff to Haoming and exchanged it for her sister, sealing their deal. But after releasing her sister and starting to leave, an ugly loser with a big nose, looking like he was battling addiction and chemotherapy at the same time, blocked their path. Their leader clarified that they only returned her sister but had never granted them permission to leave. When Jing tried to throw her rope toward his face, it bounced back and tangled around her own feet, causing her to fall to the ground and lose the staff. As the second demon approached, Jing pretended to chant a spell to scare him, then sprayed liquid into his mouth. Swiftly, she grabbed her sister and began to flee. But before reaching the exit, her weakened sister collapsed. As the demons closed in, Jing tried to create a net to trap them. However, Haoming slashed through the net, nearly slicing both sisters in two. When the second demon wondered what they were after, Jing's sister tried to kick him, but he caught her foot and began to stretch it. At the same time, Jing managed to dodge Haoming's sword and threw her net at the big-nosed demon, tying him to the wall. But as Haoming attempted to cut him in half, the initially boring situation turned into a more intense spectacle, and Jing tried to throw her net at Haoming's face. However, Haoming summoned stones from the ground to crush her body, knocking her unconscious. With Jing too exhausted to run, the big-nosed demon decided to cast a spell, successfully trapping them within a barrier that made escape impossible. Outside the cave, Saro was trying to find the right route on his device, while Jin suggested they split up before entering the cave. But as they ran through the corridors, Rio started to feel suspicious because everything looked the same, and he wondered if they were lost. Jin, on the other hand, sensed Jing's scent very close by, and when they reached the center of the cave, they saw that Jing had been captured, while Haoming was attempting something horrific toward the two girls. Rio immediately got angry and wanted to defend Jing, but Jin stopped him as the barrier began to fade. Just as Haoming prepared to carry out his plan, Jing threw a net that hit him in the face, forcing him to retreat. But that only made him angrier, and Haoming summoned stones from the ground. However, her brother shielded Jing and sustained a fatal wound. Seeing him dying, Jin jumped to kill Haoming, but Haoming managed to block his sword, causing him to fall to the side. As Rio tried to strike Koro's head, he easily dodged and slapped him, knocking him down due to Rio's weakness. At the same time, Xiaoba blasted a hole into the cave. Seeing Jing's horribly injured face, Xiaoba released an energy blast to destroy her, but Jin shielded her, and the blast instead created a large hole in the cave. While Xiaoba questioned whether Jin had lost his mind, Jin tried to explain that Jing was merely a victim. Rio, on the other hand, was determined to keep things simple and tried to stop Xiaoba from launching another blast. At that moment, they realized their enemies were protected by a barrier, and Cyril revealed that they had acquired one of the fragments. Haoming, wondering if his repressed hormones were making him irritable, angered Xiaoba, and Xiaoba was ready to obliterate them all. However, Jin quickly intervened and told Jing to run away. When Rio planned to help, Koro tried to stop him, but Jin threatened to behead him. To even the fight, Haoming decided to call for backup, and a group of useless lackeys surrounded them. But as they flew into attack, Cyril summoned a tornado that swept them out of the cave. Even so, Haoming remained determined to resist and tried to trap the girls within stone. But Cyril summoned wind to push them away. As Koro flew toward them with his sword, Jin immediately blocked his attack, while Xiaoba deflected the lackey's dagger before slashing at Koro. In an instant, Cyril unleashed lightning, and as Haoming attempted to trap them in a King Kong barrier, Xiaoba punched him into the sky, while Cyril summoned thunder that struck Haoming right then and there. With Haoming electrocuted, Jin quickly rushed to take Jing away, hoping to find a safer place for them. As they walked away from the cave, Jing returned the staff to Rio, apologizing for stealing it in the first place. Inside the cave, Haoming appeared before Cyril and immediately attacked him. However, Ciro quickly dodged and countered by releasing red flames. Hao Ming managed to shield himself with rock, causing the flames to rebound toward him. As Hao Ming tried to take advantage of the moment, Zhao Ba came to assist, blasting Hao Ming to corner him. Unyielding, Hao Ming threw rocks at them. Ciro tried to hold them back with a water shield, but the rocks pierced through, forcing them to dodge. Seeing an opportunity, Zhao Ba launched another blast, but Hao Ming countered with rocks, causing the blast to reverse and strike them instead. Despite being hit by a fragment of energy, Hao Ming could still control the surrounding rocks for protection. As Hao Ming began boasting about his supposed invincibility, Ciro had a brilliant idea. Ciro released lightning into the water, electrocuting Hao Ming instantly. Zhao Ba then launched a finishing attack that finally ice-skyed Hao Ming. With Hao Ming finally dead, a soul fragment appeared before them. Zhao Ba took it without hesitation and quickly rushed outside to regroup with the others. Outside the cave, just as Jin felt they were finally safe, Koro suddenly jumped out from behind the rocks, but Ryo reacted immediately, knocking him to the ground. Koro tried to counterattack, but Jin swiftly parried him and managed to gain control over the situation. Koro then unleashed ghostly tentacles, and they clashed fiercely once more. Jin skillfully slashed at Koro before leaping back, narrowly avoiding Koro's tentacles. Despite his exhaustion, Jin kept holding his ground while Ryo tried to fend off Koro's brutal assault, but Koro landed a hard elbow strike, trapping Jin in a barrier, and kicked Ryo roughly, almost mocking his helplessness. Desperate, Jin tried to slash through the barrier with all his strength, but Koro was distracted, noticing the sword looked familiar. Jing threw a net to hinder him, but Koro easily sliced through it. At that moment, Jing began to realize her energy was running low. Koro seized the opportunity to chant a spell, turning Jin's body into stone. Growing more desperate, Jin urged Ryo to escape, saying that with his terrible luck, he might just end up trapped again.